No, no. Just trying to be myself. You're so dumb. Hey, this is Troutbitten. Thanks for joining me. Welcome back to the 9 Essential Skills for Tight Line and Euro Nymphing. What we're doing is walking through everything that comprises really one presentation. Let's say from the cast to the delivery and to the drift. Today we're going to cover recovering slack. We're going to talk about why recovering that slack gives you all the control you need and how to recover that slack and why it's so important. All of these elements kind of build together to, again, have one presentation. Every skill really matters, dovetails into the next. And we're gonna talk about where we are and where we're going with this skill series too. Are you ready? Recovering slack. Here we go. Got my coffee bean. I'm gonna put one of those beads on there and on a hook, on a small hook. I'm gonna put like a 4mm bead on there. And then I'm gonna put about 2 CDL tails, fibers. I don't wanna make the tail too big. And then it's gonna have a thread body. And then I'll have just a touch, I mean just a touch of synthetic dubbing. And be earth tones. The whole thing will be earth tones. And then I'll call it the coffee bean. It's my next fly. It's killer. Killer fly. Bead on a hook fly. Bean on a hook fly. Coffee bean. Don't want to overdo those fibers though. So here we are, baseline drift. What I mean by that, there are going to be variables throughout a day of fishing, throughout 10 minutes of fishing. We've been talking about this baseline. We went through angle and approach. Here I am, one rod length over, about 2.5 rod lengths up right there. I'm drifting through here. But there are going to be times I'm going to throw it over here, right? See what happens. I'm getting some cross lead almost on purpose, or at least resigned to, like, that's a nice spot. I don't want to wade down into the golden ratio, perfect angle and approach. Fine, right? So variables, yes. But what we're really doing here is walking through, again, your baseline for not even just tight line nymphing, but when I'm doing dry dropper, I still am doing all of these things, turnover and tuck cast. When I'm doing tight line to the indicator, I want that turnover and that tuck cast. That was, our second episode. And then we talked about sticking the landing. And even when I fish streamers on a mono rig, I almost always want that fly first entry, yes, and then I stick the landing on the sighter. We went through that, how that brings the sighter into this position right here. I'm good. And now we're to the point where we need to recover slack. After that, we're going to talk about finding contact, not necessarily contact to the bottom, but contact on the sighter, seeing how you have contact on the sighter, and then you can read the sighter. That's what we're doing next time. After that, we talk about, finding the strike zone, which is a cushion of water underneath. And that's really, I'd say, where the fishing part starts. I'm talking about all this baseline skills, these things we need to be able to do with these 9 essential skills. So many of them are happening right up front, in just a couple seconds. Yes, I'm in a good position. And then I make the tuck cast. And then I'm, tuck cast, stick the landing, there's my contact. Tuck cast, stick the landing, recover that slack a little bit, there's my contact. It all happens very quickly. And then you kind of get to the fishing part. It really is just not as simple as throw it in and drift it downstream. It isn't. And so here we are. We're going to recover some slack. We're going to talk about why this is so important. But there's my baseline, right? It all happens very quickly. And I think we need to understand that within almost that first 1 or 2 seconds, everything is basically lining up. So now we can get to the fishing part. A couple more casts here without me talking about it so much here. Watch. This is how I'd fish it. Tuck cast. Sticking the landing. I'm fishing. I'm going to move over, get that next little lane. Tuck cast. I'm fishing now. Right? Angle and approach. Tuck cast. Good turnover. Recovered slack. And then I find the contact. Recovered slack almost immediately. I was fishing right there. There's a lot to it. And you've got to put kind of everything in order. It really helps to think about these things, to kind of have a plan, and maybe also understand where your deficiencies might be, you know, where if things are laying down for you, it's because maybe you're not recovering slack soon enough. So let's get into the slack recovery. So here's why recovering slack is just so important. We have control because we're recovering slack. If we don't recover it, we're really out of control, and we have no idea really what's going on underneath. We're casting upstream. We're trying to get these baseline dead drifts. There's other things we'll do with the nymph, but mostly, just like a dry fly, you're trying to get that natural dead drift. The only way to make that happen is by casting upstream. When I cast upstream, of course, the river is going to push the fly downstream and create slack. We have to stay tight, almost. I mean, you're not always pure tight, but we need that contact from rod tip to fly. That's why we're doing this in the first place. If you think about it, a tight line advantage is what I call it. That allows us to have all this control, all this strike detection. That's important to understand, is that if I don't recover slack here, if I do this and really don't do anything, and I didn't do anything with my rod, I didn't do anything with my line hand, then I'm losing that tight line advantage. I also stick on the bottom. I lose the tight line advantage. There's almost no reason to do it. There are times we'll lay everything down on purpose, and then sometimes we'll pick them up. But for the most part, you got to understand, if you have too much slack in the system, you're going to lose strike detection. You're going to lose that advantage of understanding what's really going on underneath. Here's one more thing I think is really important. We're not trying to move the fly as we recover slack. Just trying to recover what the river gives us. Tuck it in, just bring it downstream, allow the fly to kind of do its own thing, just recover what the river gives us. Don't move the fly. That's the baseline idea anyway. Hey, this video is sponsored by our good friends over at Trout Routes. Trout Routes is a fisherman's app. It starts with mapping software. It's really the best mapping software out there to help you find your next access point to whenever you're traveling, even some of your favorite rivers. You'd be very surprised what you can find by checking out the Trout Routes app, looking through those maps, and just finding your next favorite spot. So the app also aggregates a bunch of data about water levels, water temperatures, special regulations on the river. It's kind of an essential piece of gear for anglers these days. So you can use the code Troutbitten for 20% off your pro membership at maps.troutroutes.com. Thanks to Trout Routes for supporting the Troutbitten project. Thank you. Thank you very much too for watching and supporting. All right, we know why recovering slack is important. And now how do we do it? If you had a spinning rod in your hand, you'd recover slack by, cranking. A gear rod, there's one way to recover slack. Well, you can do it with the rod tip too. So let's get into that here. With the fly line approach, or with the fly fishing approach here, you're using a line hand. Line hand does what cranking the reel would. And you can do a figure eight. Yep, figure eight retrieve, I don't do that very much with a mono rig because it kind of crimps it up. If you have a micro thin mono rig, I'll do that a little bit more sometimes. But see how that crimps it up? I don't like that. Makes me want to stretch it out. So you can use the line hand in a couple different ways. That figure eight retrieve is one. And then I do most often what I call a pulley retrieve. It looks like this. We have a full video on the pulley retrieve. I'm not going to get into it too much, but if you watch the hands, you see that right there. It's not a strip. It's going around my thumb. It's going under my trigger finger and around my thumb. I got some crap on the fly. It's going under my trigger finger and around my thumb. And I can recover about 4 to 5 feet of slack that way, very comfortably, really smooth. I do this a lot. I'll tuck it in, and then I'll do what I call trimming the sighter, just like that. Just kind of puts that sighter in the hopefully perfect position, right where I want it. That's the second way with the hand, right? And of course, the third way is probably the most common way with the hand, is just put it in and strip. The problem with stripping is now I got to pick up and strip again. It can tend to almost stutter the fly. Let's say if you're here and here, if you strip too much, you're going to animate the fly. And I was saying, you don't want to move or animate the fly. You're just trying to recover slack. The strip and then strip again, you'll often see the sighter kind of go up and down. Everything the sighter does, the fly's going to do. We don't want that fly to move. So stripping's okay. Anyway, those are the 3 ways to do it with the hand. And then 2 ways with the rod tip. This is really important. Later on, we're going to talk about the lift and the lead. But as we're recovering slack here, this is important to understand. I can recover all the slack that I need to without the line hand, let's say, at this distance, by just tucking it in and leading the fly downstream. Leading does not change that sighter angle. Leading basically is taking my rod tip and tracing, I don't know, the riverbank or something up there that's horizontal on the bank, right there. I'm deliberately right now keeping my line hand out of it, just so you can see what I mean. I'm just leading through. That sighter doesn't move up, doesn't move down. It just goes like this. It just comes along again, horizontal, or rather parallel with the riverbank, for example, right there, just coming right down. That's leading. The fly doesn't drop as much. The fly doesn't have as much grace or slack to drop when you lead. That's a good thing. You use that for effect. The other way to recover slack with the rod tip is to lift. I'm doing the same thing here, but I'm just lifting slack. And you can see as I lift slack that's coming back to me, so lift the slack that the river has given me, I create a more and more vertical angle. So all I'm doing is lifting my rod tip. Get this snag out. That brings me to a good point though, that as I lift the rod tip, I'm actually creating, I don't know if I'm creating slack, but I'm allowing the fly to fall a little bit more. Might seem counterintuitive, but it allows the fly to get deeper, right? If you have some of the deepest water you're going to encounter in a day, you're going to need to lift to allow for a more vertical angle so that more line can get under the water. So once again, I'm going to tuck it in and just lift, lift, lift. There, it got down right away. And then I should lead. We'll talk more about lifting and leading here in future episodes. But these are the things. You can use the line hand in a few different ways, and the rod really in two ways. Just leading. It doesn't mean I'm moving the fly either. I'm just recovering slack. And then just lifting, lifting, lifting. And there I got down. As I'm lifting, I am just maybe tracing a tree trunk up there. Or, I don't know, something vertical then on the riverbank rather than horizontal. Lifting and then leading. And I most often, I'm really gonna combine all three. I'm gonna tuck it in, stick the landing. I used a little bit of pulley retrieve, I lifted, and now I'm leading. You know, you almost can't say it fast enough to keep up with what you're doing. Tuck it in, pulley retrieve, lift, lift, lead. Yep. And then you're trying to look for contact on the sighter. And that's what we'll talk about next time. So it really is important to have all the ways to recover slack that we talked about kind of in your game, into one system. You're not going to think about it after a while, but you want to be disciplined enough to learn all three and then combine them. Because there's some troubles you're going to run into. If it's a really windy day, for example, well, then you're not going to want to lift very much. You're going to put more sail in the air. So in the wind, you're going to need, to keep the rod low, and you're going to want to be good at leading and line hand. How about this limb, for example? If I'm fishing if the limb was out over the water, but if I'm fishing here, I can't lift, right? I'm gonna tuck it in, yep, that's good, and then, I can't lift. So I need to be good, again, at leading through, and especially then when you're under cover like that, under a lot of these branches, you need that line hand work. You want to have all those options open to you. I'll say another thing. I see a lot of people, not using the line hand. As soon as they might be really great dry fly fishermen and good at throwing a dry line, and they have good handwork. It's like as soon as you throw the mono rig in people's hands and they're not holding the fly line, maybe they don't spend the time to get used to it. Spend that time. Don't be a wimp about it. Just learn to hold the monofilament in your hands. You'll eventually really appreciate this extra sensitivity you get and control with the whole system, but you can feel it more through your hand. The fly line kind of deadens the feel of what's going on underneath, and you learn to appreciate that extra sensitivity, let's say. So remember, the slack recovery is all about gaining control over the system, and it sets us up then to be able to read the sighter. You want to find contact on the sighter, and when we read that sighter, you understand everything about what's going on underneath. There's no guessing. You understand exactly where your nymph is, what it's doing, how it's going to move next, and you're in control of all that because you recover the slack. That's it. You gain control with that slack recovery. Don't forget, there's a bunch of other videos. There's 4 other videos I want to mention that show some of what we just talked about in detail. So we have the pulley retrieve, 5 keys to reading the sighter, the lift and lead video, and the golden ratio of tightline nymphing. And there are a bunch of other resources over at Troutbitten for you. Check them out. Fish hard. Have fun out there. See you next time.